We were comparing disguises in my room in a backpackers hostel in the touristy centre of Edinburgh. We'd bamboozled the receptionist with Bain's dodgy ID and a handful of cash and rented a couple of single rooms for the day so we could sleep and shower. Now, it was after 4 PM and the light was already starting to fade in this cold northern city. Time to go guising. But first, we had to negotiate our passage through the family from hell. We left the hostel with our masks perched on top of our heads and our thin cloaks blowing behind us. As we walked down the steep cobbled hill, I said, in this phone call, you're going to offer to give me to your family if they let us past? Yes, and I'm supposed to not know this, obviously, or you wouldn't be daft enough to play along. And I'm not daft, am I? And because you've told me what you're planning, I'm supposed to believe you're double-crossing them and being honest with me? It would be handy if you could read minds, Lucy, because then you'd know I'm telling the truth. No! How could you not trust me when I'm dressed like this? He whirled his plastic scythe over his head. But I couldn't trust him. Not completely. So Death and a witch walked down the Royal Mile, phoning a man who'd happily kill us both.
You have said that you're giving up wizardry and magic and this is a book for teenage children or for young people, and yet you're still mentioning witches. Is the temptation
well, firstly, I haven't given up magic. I will definitely write fantasy books for a younger readership in the future. But when I had the idea for Mind Blind, the idea of a mind reader who was overwhelmed by what he read when he read people's minds, and also a mind reading family who use their skills to commit crimes, that felt like a darker idea than the ideas I usually write. There was more danger, there was certainly more violence. So I knew that it wasn't an idea I could write for 8-year-olds, it was definitely an idea for young adults, which is why Mind Blind is for young adults. That wee bit I read you there, I chose because we're on the Royal Mile. That's them dressing up in disguise. There's no witches at any other point in the book. It is definitely a book without magic in it. The characters themselves are older, and by having the characters older, that made the language a little different, it made what they were able to do a little different, and because the content and the ideas were different, that made the story different. But to be honest, whatever age I'm writing for, all I'm ever doing is sharing the story. So as a writer, the end result is different, but as a writer I was just writing the story.
And we're delighted, of course, that you've chosen to situate some of the book in Edinburgh. So here on the Royal Mile, elsewhere?
Yes, Leith. When I was writing the book, I was living in Leith. So the book actually starts in London, but the goal is always to get to Edinburgh. Everyone's goal is always to get to Edinburgh. So the last part of the book is set in Edinburgh. There's a journey to Edinburgh. They get to Edinburgh, and then they get to Leith. They walk down the Royal Mile towards Leith, and they end up on the docks. So I used a lot of my favourite parts of Edinburgh, which was great. It meant that I could go to bits of Edinburgh I know really well and look at them with different eyes, look at them to see where you'd set a fight scene or where you'd escape if you were being chased.